Welcome everyone, Shabbat Shalom. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. You may have noticed that my table is a little different. Usually it's not a round table, it's square. And the other thing that's different, which is far more significant, is that you might have noticed that our Cantor Carol Garrett is not here. She's out of town. We do give her time off once in a while. We let her go away on a vacation. Not too often. But what that means is that I need everybody here to join me in the singing, partly to drown me out, but also partly so that you can participate in the service. You will find the words up there on the screen sometimes, and feel free to join in. You don't have to be a professional singer to join with us. In case you were wondering where you are, you're at the Carlisle. All right, Carlisle is a very nice senior center, which is kind enough to allow us to come here and share Shabbat rent-free. We found a way to survive by not having to pay any rent. When other congregations are going under and struggling, we have a very sophisticated board that knows how to conserve money pretty well. We also are here with congregation L'Dor Va-Dor, which means generation to generation. It was founded by my father and mom, and I participated a little bit, so we have different generations. And L'Dor Va-Dor does something very unusual. It's considered heresy by some. We use common sense, reason, logic, and we're actually consistent with science, which is almost unheard of in the religious field. If I say something that you think is incorrect, if I say something which you think is not consistent with science, please stop me, because the scientific method is constantly improving and getting better and closer to truth all the time. So therefore, I need you to help fact check me. I won't be offended. I will be thrilled if you can help move us forward towards ultimate reality. We're going to start out with a song called Hine Ma Tov. Means how lovely it is, how good it is to dwell together in unity and harmony. We do have some people with us who haven't been here for quite a while, either due to illness or they don't want to catch COVID. Some people are here for the first time because they found out that we're doing services and they're residents of the Carlisle. We welcome all of you. It's a thrill to be here. Thank you for joining us in Shabbat, and feel free to sing with us. We're going to do Hine Ma Tov in different languages to show that it's good for people to dwell not just with people like us, but with everybody of all different stripes and races and religions. So feel free to join with me. I'm going to do it straight the first time so that you can join with me. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim la 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 la. Hine ma tov u'manayim la 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 la. Como a Jair, o Amufid, Anaisha y Juatan Wajan, que agradables unirse en paz, celebrando como hermanos, como merveilleux et magnifique, célébrer comme frères ensemble, que agradable es unirse en paz, celebrando como hermanos. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. It's my pleasure now to call up Eleanor and Howard Bernstein to lead us in the candle blessing. If you come up here, you don't just get to read a script. You can share any thoughts or comments you want. And here at L'Dor Va-Dor, anything goes. So whatever you want to say, it's all legit.
Right? Give them the microphone. The mic.
You're going to light the candles first, right?
First, or whatever. Okay.
Good job.
Lighting candles is a way of making time. From the moment the candles are lit, Shabbat begins, and we enter into sacred time. Right after the candles are lit, and before saying the blessing, we bring the light towards ourselves 3 times in scooping motion with the flames. Okay. You wanna?
Oh, go ahead, you read it.
This action of bringing the lights to the candles towards us has been interpreted as welcoming Shabbat into our souls, or welcoming our ancestors into the space. So we then begin Shabbat for all in this place by lighting these Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto v'tzivanu v'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
How long have you been married?
65.
We've been married 65 years, which is the same amount of years I've been on this planet. And you can see the secret of a good marriage. Eleanor does all the talking. Howard asks permission, and she says, that's okay, I'll go ahead and speak. This is an evolution and a reform. In Judaism, traditional Judaism, a woman wouldn't even be able to speak up here. The man would do all the talking, and we're glad that we participate in an evolving, adaptive religious tradition. We're now going to continue with the Kiddush. This will be led for us by Bert Shaw. Bert has a bar mitzvah coming up of his grandson in January, right?
Yes.
You are all invited. Okay, it'll be the first bar mitzvah at L'Dor Va-Dor in a while. It'll be here on Friday night, and everyone is invited to that joyous event.
Kiddush, which means sanctification, is a way for Jews to proclaim the uniqueness of Shabbat. Reciting or hearing the Shabbat Kiddush is an obligation so that we are able to fulfill the need to remember Shabbat. Just as honey is used in Rosh Hashanah to symbolize a sweet new year, sweet wine has long been used to make Shabbat just a little bit sweeter. We therefore raise the cup in thanksgiving and recite the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei hagafen. Amen.
Anything you want to share with us today?
Well, I'm honored that
Use the money.
I'm honored that the service is taking place here in my residence at the Carlisle. I think it is a reflection of the quality of life here that we would choose, that you would choose to have your L'Dor Va-Dor service here. And I really think it enhances life here to know that we have this spiritual experience every week. And I just would want to wish everybody a week of tranquility and happiness and good health. Till we see you again.
Beautifully said. Yes, we could have had services anywhere in Palm Beach County, and we chose right here. And the Carlisle welcomed us with open arms, and I agree with you, Bert, I do think that's a sign of the quality of life here, that they would want to have these services for you. The symbols that we use, the wine and the candles, are just that, they're symbols. If all we do is light candles and drink wine, we haven't really taken advantage of Shabbat or properly celebrated it. When we see these symbols and partake of them directly or vicariously, we should remember that the candles symbolize the light of love and the light of reason. When we emerge from here, we should try to spread a little more love and try to think a little more rationally. Especially as election day comes up and most people are irrational, we should try to think rationally The wine reminds us that we should try to be a little sweeter. And sometimes with election day coming up, we're not so sweet when we talk to people who we disagree with. So the wine should cause us to be a little sweeter. If it does that, then the symbols are really taking their true effect.
As we bless the source of light, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. And the blessing gives us strength and makes our visions clear. And the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of light, so we are blessed.
Now we're going to, at certain times we stand for the prayers or blessings. You can feel free to do so if you're comfortable doing so. Some of us aren't doing so well physically, so if that's the case, feel free to stay seated. So now we're going to have the Baruch Hu. If you'd like, you can rise. Baruch Hu et Adonai, Hanavorach, Baruch Adonai Havorach, Nolam Vahed. The next prayer gives thanks for our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'aviv aravim borei yom v'layla kol eror mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla Adonai tza'od shemo el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hama'aviv aravim. Those of you who know Hebrew know that I introduced it incorrectly. That was not the prayer for our fathers. That was the prayer for light and day and for the functioning of the cosmos in perfect order so that the earth can give forth life. We now remain standing for the Shema, which gives thanks for the unity of all nature and the cosmos. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Vaed. Please be seated. We continue with V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha, B'chol nafshecha, B'chol meodecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. V'shivtecha b'veidecha, uvlechtecha v'derech u'shachbecha uvkumecha. U'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, u'chtavtam amazazot beitecha v'yisharecha. Leman tizkoru v'asitem ekol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'lohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liyot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. This prayer urges us to show love for all creatures, for all humanity, and the end also gives thanks for liberation from Egypt, which is a major theme of Shabbat, but we today give thanks for living in a land of freedom in the United States of America, and hopefully if we vote correctly, it will stay that way. We take nothing for granted. We do have the responsive reading now available up on the big screen. Let us make this new Shabbat better than those before. Together, we seek freedom to meditate, to listen to our inward selves. We break open the gates of the reservoirs of goodness and kindness in ourselves and in others. We now have the Hashkiveno. Hashkiveno gives thanks originally for God being a shield about us and causing us to go to sleep in safety and to wake up again. We still sing Hashkiveno, but characteristic of cosmic Judaism, we add a little bit to it to also adapt it to bring it into the 21st century. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Sukkot Shlomecha is the sukkah of your peace. There's a protective covering. And now we'll find out something our ancestors didn't know, what that covering consists of. You shelter us beneath ozone, O Adonai, through miracles that now are known. You protect earth and sky to keep us safe throughout the night. Earth's heavenly atmosphere blocks cosmic rays, but lets in light so life can thrive down here. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'hamidenu malkeinu l'chayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Amen. This earthly plane and all the universe is your domain. Life you maintain, as science does explain. The miracle of nature's laws creates life and sustains. Amen. 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 Well, I'm happy to report to you that many of these songs are being recorded professionally by professional singers and accompanied by pictures and video. This song has been recorded by a wonderful cantor, Jennifer Werby. It either is up on our website or will be going up on our website. And if you want inspiration, you'll be able to listen to some of these very, very beautiful songs. Now we have the Avot, the Imahot, where we give thanks to our forebears. It used to be the Avot, the women got short shrift. Now it's Avot, the Imahot. We give thanks to mothers and fathers. Mothers are equally responsible for what goes on in the home, and many would say much more so. So we correct this oversight and give thanks to fathers and mothers. Yes?
I was just going to say, yes, the women are responsible for so much that goes on in the household, for this, for Friday night and for other holidays and everything.
Absolutely.
And you're right, they get short shrift.
Yes, what she's saying is that for the people in cyberspace, the women are clearly responsible, maybe you would say more so, because they prepare the home for Shabbat, they prepare the Sabbath meals, they raise the children. They're responsible for the next generation. Some have wondered, why do Jews still exist even though our enemies are no more? We could say perhaps it's because of L'Dor Va-Dor. We pass on our traditions generation to generation. Who's responsible for that? Well, many would say mostly the mothers. And so some doctors were asked, a doctor was once asked, why are so many doctors Jewish? He said, because our mothers are Jewish. So the Jewish mother, often ridiculed and made fun of, should be clearly cherished. And we make up for the oversight with the Avot V'Imahot. If you'd like, please stand. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu. Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanova, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chazdei Avot, V'imahot, Mevi Geula Lebnei Bneihem, L'man Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Chozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh, U'Kadoshim B'chol Yom Yaleu Chasela, Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. This word Kadosh, meaning holiness, related to Kiddush, Kaddish, Kedusha, it means really separation. What it means is, instead of going through life mindlessly, day after day, week after week, year after year, without reflecting, because an unreflected life, it's been said, is not worth living. We Jews believe in introspection. Modern psychologists call it mindfulness. To be mindful of what we're doing, to take time to reflect, to give thanks, and to think, how can we do better? That's really what Kadosh means. It just means to separate out this day, to get off the treadmill and to actually contemplate our blessings and contemplate how we can make our lives even better. We're now going to have Naaseh Shalom. Used to be Oseh Shalom, in which we ask God to establish peace. We've been singing that for a couple of thousand years and there's still no peace. So we decided to change it to Naaseh Shalom. Maybe if we decide to make peace, Naaseh means let us make peace. Maybe we'll come closer to that elusive goal. Naaseh Shalom b'mromav, u'naaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'yamru, yimaru amen. Naaseh Shalom, Naaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Naaseh Shalom, Naaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Naaseh Shalom, Naaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Naaseh Shalom, Naaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Naaseh Shalom, Naaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. We're going to be Amru Amen. Well, now we're going to enter into a few moments of silent meditation to consider and ponder, how can we make more peace in the world? I'll remind you of something my father, who was a founder of L'Dor Va-Dor, used to say to us. When we were little kids, somebody would pick on us, maybe they'd hit us, or maybe they'd say something to us that wasn't nice. And then we were inclined to do the same. My dad would always say, don't treat him the way he treats you. Treat him the way he should treat you. Don't sink down to the level of someone who's mistreating you. Help that person to rise up to a higher level. Those were the words from my dad. I still remember them today. They've been my guide. I don't always succeed in following these words. But if you have a good guide, then even if people irk you and do things that are really annoying, if you have that goal, maybe you can overcome. So let's meditate a little bit and think, do we always respond the way somebody else does if they're treating us badly, or can we aspire to a higher level as we enter into a few moments of silent meditation? So Maslow had this priority of needs, a hierarchy of needs. And the goal was to operate on a very high level where emitting love and sharing love with others. But he noticed before we can get there, we need to fulfill some rather basic needs. One of those is to have enough to eat, shelter, and health. If we don't have health, we really can't accomplish the other goals. And so at this point, we recognize the importance of it. We give thanks for doctors. We give thanks for nurses. We give thanks for caregivers and spouses who care about us. We give thanks for the gift of health. And we pray for the healing of all those who are ailing. Our sick list includes Laura Gallagher, Sherry Glass, Margie Goldman Spaderna, Nadine Herbst, Carol Kahn, Alan Leibowitz, Howard Mandel, Janice Mason, Dr. Sudhir Nair, Marilyn Paul, Bernard Rosen, Libby Rubin, Laura Santa Cruz, Harvey Shear, Howard Tomasha, Naomi Volan, Sheila Winston, Becky Wolf, and Fred Spieloff. Even though he's ailing, he still managed to get here, which we appreciate. Anybody else? Anybody? Yes. Anybody else?
Sam Schwarzman.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll say a prayer of healing for the people of Ukraine, people of Russia, whose country is run by a madman and a lunatic, the women of Iran, who are struggling just for the right to be able to show their hair, or to have the freedom to dress the way they wanted, to be liberated from control by really demented men who are running that country. And we pray for healing for Southwest Florida, which underwent a huge catastrophe. And we pray for healing for our planet. Let us see if we can also help to be a source of healing for those within our own orbit who are ailing. And we say that the one who was able to bring healing to our ancestors, המשברך אבותינו, שהוא יברך את כל אחד אחד עכשיו, את כל העולם. Let that force, that healing power bring healing to all people and to all the world. Let us say Amen. I guess I could sing Misha Berach. I'll give it a shot. I've never sung this one on my own, but I think I can do it with your help. Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor Bracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach Yimotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Now we're going to continue with the Torah service. Got a great passage coming up. It is the very beginning of the Torah, Bereishet, in the beginning. We read responsibly, and this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now.
Love and justice, goodness and hope.
Freedom is his gift to all who treasure it and for all who interpret it rationally. Baruch hu et Adonai Borach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. reading from the book of Genesis. There are actually two creation myths in the book of Genesis. We're reading the second one. Vayitzar Adonai Elohim et ha'adam afar min ha'adamah. And God fashioned human beings out of the dust of the earth. The word afar means dust. It's related to the Hebrew word iparon. Any Hebrew speakers here? Iparon is from afar. It's made out of lead. Min ha'adamah, adamah is related to the word Adam. Adamah is the earth, so out of the dust of the earth. Now here's the key phrase that I've used in the litigation for us to even get a hearing, but we persist. Vayipach be'efav nishmat chayim. And God breathed into his nostrils nishmat chayim. We probably recognize chayim as life. Nishmat is related to the word neshama, means the breath of life. And from this line, Judaism believes that life begins with breathing and is synonymous with breathing. And therefore the fetus is not considered a nefesh, a human being, until it draws its first breath. Others are free to believe anything they want. But what they're not free to do is to impose Christian mistranslations and misunderstandings about our Bible and then force it back on us because they're able to manipulate the political system and the judicial system in order to end Jewish practice as we know it and criminalize our religion. That they're not able to do, or at least in a just society they shouldn't be able to do. Vayehi ha'adam lenefesh chaya. And thus Adam, or Adam, the first human, was a nefesh, a human being, chaya, which is related to chai or chayim. He was a living human being once he had the breath of life in him. Vayita Adonai Elohim gan be'eden v'kedem vayeshem sham et ha'adam asher yatzah. He placed him in the Garden of Eden, and then the human being that he fashioned, he placed in the garden. Vayitzmach Adonai Elohim min ha'adamah kol etz nechmad l'mar'eh. This is the opposite sequence of the first creation story. You probably remember that one. That gets a little more publicity. It's a little more famous. God creates all the different things, the plants, the animals, and then he saves the best for last, maybe human beings, and then Adam is created last. Here is a second creation story. These are two myths piled on top of each other. Here, Adam is created first. He places him in the garden, and then God puts a fountain there, and then Vayitzmach Elohim min ha'adamah kol etz. Etz is tree, like Eitz Chayim. And then he creates a fountain, and then God puts all the plants and all the trees in the garden. So man is created before the vegetation. If you want to have an interesting experience and a little bit of fun, ask the Orthodox rabbi to explain that one and to reconcile that with modern science, and also to reconcile two creation stories and a lot else. The tov lamachal, and the tree bore fruit that was good to eat. The etz hachayim, the toch hagan. The tree, etz hachayim, of life. The toch was in the midst of hagan, the garden. And that's how we get the word garden, from the Hebrew word gan. The etz hada'at tov v'cha. He also placed there the tree of good and evil. Blessing after the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu tuchat emet, v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. Now, I will share with you that later on in the story, as you might know, God tells Adam not to eat from the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge. Don't eat from that tree, he says. You might wonder, why wouldn't God want human beings to have knowledge? Why would that be? Well, place yourself back in the ancient days. You're a priest or a religious authority, and you want your people to believe blindly, without thinking, without asking any questions. You tell them something and you say, I'm speaking for God, and then you want them to do your bidding. Would you want them to be filled with knowledge? No. If they questioned, you would say, you're violating God's law. He said, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. Now you're trying to show knowledge. I have the knowledge. Or if you're trying to brainwash someone, that's a pretty good way of doing it. Fortunately, Judaism evolved past that. We don't really pay much attention to this. We really don't. Christians are pretty big on it. They like that one. That's the original sin. They wanted to become knowledgeable. And they're pretty big on believing things on faith alone and punishing people for thinking. I should rephrase that. Fundamentalist Christians, just like Orthodox Jews. There are many, many Christians who, like Jews, many modern Jews have moved on. They don't take it literally. Hopefully the rest of them will follow suit. Bereishet is a fascinating story. It gives the best explanation for how everything got here in a pre-scientific age. If you look around and you see an incredible world ahead of you, and you see wonders beyond the limit, and you wonder how you got here, you're going to be filled with curiosity. You're going to want to know. And you know, sometimes it's better to believe something that's not true than to believe nothing at all. People would rather have some belief about this than to just be left in the dark. And so they created myths to explain how things got here. These myths were very fanciful and not at all accurate. Sadly, there are people in the name of religion who still accept these myths as truth. Some of them who have moved on will say, well, this was allegory. It was not allegory. This was intended by our ancestors to explain how things got here. And now, hopefully, we can move on. Many of us have not. But if you're interested in how things really got here, then I recommend this book, Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors. It tells you scientifically how the universe was created, how Earth came and arose, how human beings got here, how all the other animals got here, and it's quite fascinating. I would tell you, or paraphrase what Carl Sagan had to say, but I wouldn't do it justice. Every word that he writes is like poetry. And so I thought, after reading a little bit of this creation myth, I will read you a little bit, and this is just a tiny fraction of some of what actually occurred to the best of our knowledge. The immense, overpowering blackness is relieved here and there by a faint point of light, which upon closer approach is revealed to be a mighty sun, blazing with thermonuclear fire and warming a small surrounding volume of space. The universe is almost entirely black emptiness. And yet, the number of suns is staggering. The neighborhoods immediately encompassing these suns represent an insignificant fraction of the vastness of the cosmos. But many, perhaps most of these cheerful, bright, clement, circumstellar regions are occupied by worlds. In the Milky Way galaxy alone, there may be 100 billion of them, neither too close by nor too distant from the local sun, around which they orbit in silent gravitational homage. This is a story about one such world, perhaps not very different from any others, a story especially about the beings that evolved upon it, and one kind in particular. Just to be alive billions of years after the origin of life, a being must be tough, resourceful, and lucky. There have been many hazards along the way. Life forms endure by being patient, say, or ravenous, or solitary, or camouflage, or profligate with offspring, or fearsome hunters, or are able to fly away to safety, or sleek swimmers, or burrowers, or sprayers of noxious, disorienting liquids, or masters at infiltrating into the very genetic material of other unsuspecting beings, or by accidentally being elsewhere when the predators stalk, or the river is poisoned, or the food supply dwindles. The creatures with which we are particularly concerned were not so long ago gregarious to a fault, noisy, quarrelsome, arboreal, bossy, sexy, clever, tool-using with prolonged childhoods, and tender regard for their young. One thing led to another. In a twinkling, their descendants had multiplied all over the planet, killed off all their rivals, devised world-transforming technologies, and posed a mortal danger to themselves and the many other beings with whom they shared their small home. At the same time, they set off to visit the planet, other planets, and the stars. He then goes on to describe in detail the onset of life in all living things. He also laments that we seem to be too smart for ourselves and that contemporary religion and politics has failed to be able to protect us from ourselves. And he seeks a unification between reason and science and religion so that religion can be used rationally to inspire people. He also mentions that the word to breathe is spirit, comes from the Latin spiritum, which means breath. So our life, as I mentioned earlier, is synonymous with breathing. And from that we get aspire, respire, transpire, and conspire, and aspire, to look forward to doing certain things. So we read this passage from creation in order to recognize that we've come a long way, but certain ideals we cling to. The idea that every one of us is sacred, the idea that all living things are good, the idea that creation is wondrous and magnificent, and that we should aspire to preserve all that's wonderful in our lives. They did understand something about human beings, that we are rather godlike in some of our qualities. God is very life-giving and can also be very destructive. Many people give me a hard time for saying, Rabbi, if people feel good believing these stories, why do you have to challenge them? Why do you have to suggest otherwise? Let them believe. They seem happy. And I'm reminded of the, aphorism by George Bernard Shaw. He said, the fact that a believer seems more happy than a skeptic is as much to the point as the fact that a drunk seems happier than a sober person. Merely being happy shouldn't be our goal. People living in the 1920s in Europe, they might have been happy, but they didn't realize what was about to happen. The Jews in 1491, in 1053, before the Crusades, the people in Tampa before the hurricane, they might have been happy, but happiness is short-lived unless you're also sober and you know what you're doing. If you don't realize an impending catastrophe is coming and you have a political party that's denying climate change, we might be happy. Our future generations, our children, our grandchildren, that's a different story. I'm also inspired by Charles Darwin because he finally, after billions of years of evolution, figured out where we all came from. And you know what? He noticed something very interesting that we now know. If you were to take the history of planet Earth, we believe it's about 4.5 billion years, and you were to make a calendar of 1 year, and that 1 year on the calendar represents all of the history of planet Earth, the 4.5 billion years, guess what would happen? Where do you think human beings would appear on the calendar? Where would we be? Would it be in maybe October or November? Maybe December? Well, let me share with you. Human beings would be on December 31st at 11:35 at night. The world had been going on for billions of years, about 2 billion years before there were even multicellular organisms. The world had been going on for a very long time, up until maybe about 1 billion years ago, before sex was developed. The world had been going on for a very long time, until about 450 million years ago, when life emerged out of the oceans onto the land. And that was, we believe, because oxygen combined with the oxygen in the atmosphere to create ozone, which blocked the lethal radiation from the sun, so that creatures could go onto land without being burned to a crisp. What I'm trying to suggest is that we're here just for a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of time, but we think that we're invincible, and we think our continued existence is inevitable. Compared to the dinosaurs, we haven't been here that long. And when you look at life in that perspective, you tend to realize that the biblical account that says the earth was belonging to us, that we were created first, that in the beginning God created the heaven and earth, and they try to reconcile that with modern science. No. In the beginning there wasn't earth. Earth came after about 10 billion years of the universe. If we don't understand how we got here, if we don't understand who we are, if we don't understand our nature, if we don't understand what Carl Sagan is trying to say in this book, that our presence here is quite astounding and extraordinary. It's amazing. We should cherish every single day, and we shouldn't take anything for granted, certainly not our continued existence. And when he tells us that the atmosphere on Earth is the same thickness as the coat of paint of shellac on a globe, and that atmosphere is being destroyed, you start to realize that we have a bunch of bumbling, ridiculous, unscientific, blatantly ignorant people making decisions for us, saying that we should burn, baby, burn fossil fuels. You realize how utterly unsustainable and how outrageous it is. And when you realize that the other political party doesn't even make an issue of it, and instead is focused on how much money we're paying for gas or for food, which, yes, it's important. But is this as important as our continued existence on Earth and the life of our children? Then you start to realize what Carl Sagan is saying is correct. We have a bunch of fools and ignoramuses running the show here. We better get our act together. However, lest you be too gloomy, Judaism does say that we were born good. Our soul is good. We have intelligence, but we don't use it too much. Who does use intelligence? Now I'm going to indicate my bias. What group of people wins more Nobel Prizes per capita by far than any other group of people on the planet? By far. The Jewish people. What other people believes from the Torah and throughout our history that we're good and that we can be kind and that we can be loving, and every Yom Kippur is saying that we're going to be restored to goodness? What other people has this absolute confidence in the goodness of people that can help overcome any problem? Jewish people. What other group of people has survived the constant effort of more powerful forces to destroy us and annihilate us, and we end up outlasting all of them? What other group of people has this indomitable spirit and this survival instinct? I will say the Jewish people, and I will say that the Jewish people needs to be Jews. They can try to criminalize abortion, but they cannot criminalize the Jewish message, to be a light to the nations. And I'm calling on all of us here and in cyberspace, all Jewish people, to rise up and to be Jews. I don't mean by going to synagogue. I don't mean by eating Jewish food, and I don't mean by speaking some Yiddish words, all of which are good. I mean by being Jewish in the way that's important, by saving humanity from ourselves. We can do it. Our ancestors believed in us. They gave their lives to preserve this heritage so that we could be here at this moment to do our part to save this earth and to make tomorrow a better tomorrow, one that's filled with justice, with joy, and with peace. Shabbat Shalom.
Now we're going to continue
with Erev Shel Shoshanim. If you'd like, feel free to join with me. It means Evening of Roses. Erev Shel Shoshanim Netzena El Habustan Morez Amim Ulevoma Leragalech Miftan Laila Yochid Le'at Veruach Shoshan Oshva Hava El Hashlach Shir Bala Zemer Shel Ahava Laila Yochid Le'at Veruach Shoshan Oshva Hava El Hashlach Shir Bala Zemer Shel Ahava. We continue now with the Aleinu. If you like, you can stand for this part of our service. Aleinu nishabeach le'adon hakol, la'tegedula liyoser bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei aratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpechot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kohem, ve'gor aleinu kechul hamonam. אנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו echad. We have the Kaddish in which we give thanks for life. The likelihood of life emerging on this planet was infinitesimally small. Countless miracles had to happen. But not only life on this earth, the life of any one of us or of our parents or grandparents, if you were to re-roll the tape and play back Earth's history over again and see if you come up with somebody who lived on this earth, the chances are, again, infinitesimally small. So in our grief, in our mourning of the loss of our dear ones, we give thanks that the earth spewed forth an incredible person. Our father, our mother, our grandparents, our relatives, our ancestors, humanity. The Kaddish gives thanks for life and gives thanks for our ability to preserve what was good and noble in their lives. Yiskadav yiskadash shemei Rabbah, v'yomad yivrach roseh v'yamlich ma'achoseh, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayeh b'chol beis Yisrael. V'agalav izman kali v'imru amen. Yishmer Rabba mivorach l'olam omay omaya. Yisparach, yistabach, yispal, yischomam, yisnasay. V'yisadar, v'yisaleh, v'yisalal, shemer, k'rishah, b'rechu. Le'elam inkol b'rchasa v'shirasa. Tushbechasa v'nechamasa. Da'michon v'yomah v'imru amen. Yehi shlam Rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu v'yokol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom aleinu. Please be seated. And I'd like to read the names of those who recently were summoned from us and whose name we read the Kaddish, and those whose yard site occurs these days. Recently deceased Samuel Abramson, Robert Berliner, Roger Cohen, Stuart Cohen, Joel Fertel, Richard Glass, David Gordon, Stephen Grossman, Samuel Elliott Meckley, Linda Pruskin. Yahrzeit Stanley Baum, Rebecca Block, Barbara Bromfeld, Esther Gerstein, Morris Goldberg, Murray Goldman, Benjamin Gordon, Eleanor Greenberg, Eileen Greer, Thelma Haberman, Beverly Hammer, Ruth Kaminsky, Edith Kearley, Harry Krause, Benjamin Kushner, Dorothy Leaf, Tracy Levin, Rebecca Lidfeld, Ian K. Lippert, Sarah Millman, Martin Ostroff, J. Lewis Rose, Rose Rosenberg, Sarah Rosenberg, Eva Rosenthal, Arlene Rosenwasser, Mark Rubin, Robert Silver, James Smith, Sally Spruckman, Esther Visol, Herman Visol, Ralph Wheel. Anybody else? Any other names you'd like to? Robinson. Thank you. Anybody else? We hope that all these loved ones, that their memory will be a blessing. Now it's my pleasure to call up the brains behind this operation, Sharon Leibovitz, for her announcements.
So we have a men's breakfast this Sunday, October 23rd at 11 a.m., and that is at the Bagels and Restaurant. We have a reservation for 10 men right now, and if you want to join us, please join in. Give a call to Stanley Rosenwasser or email him, and it's on the newsletter, and it's also on the website. On November 13th, we have the ladies' luncheon, and it is now going to be at Lucille's in the Delray Marketplace on November 13th at 1:30. Please give us a call at the temple to let us know you'll be there. The next screen, please. Okay, we have a touch of Torah, our Torah study with Rabbi Barry Silver every Tuesday at October 25th at 7 p.m. We have a lovely discussion on Zoom, so you don't have to leave your home for that. If you can go to the next slide, please. And next Friday night, we'll be here, October 28th, so welcome Shabbat and welcome at the Carlisle. The next slide, please. And on October 30th, we have our Song Fest with Paul Simon and Carol King's music, performed by Cantor Carol Garrett and Andrew Sussman, Cantorial Spiritual Leader. A wonderful Zoom program. You do not want to miss this at 4 o'clock on October 30th. It's a Sunday afternoon. And with that, I want to thank you all for coming tonight again. Please look at our website for our calendar and for everything that's happening with L'Dor Va-Dor, our YouTube channel, and our Facebook page for everything that's happening with L'Dor Va-Dor. Stay in the know with L'Dor Va-Dor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon, for all you do, and Emily as well for operating the Zoom. I just want to share with you that we have the Muslim picnic coming up on October 30. I think one of our highest callings is interfaith peace and harmony. Religion has all too often been a source of conflict. To atone for that, we should try to work with other groups. The first one of which should be Muslims, our brothers and sisters, the religion that's closest to Judaism. If we could establish good relations with Muslims, the world would see that anybody can get along, and everybody should get along. That's October 30. Keep in touch with our newsletter, and you'll find out about this. There's also going to be a showing of Called Jane, a movie about abortion rights and what happened before you can get an abortion. We're going to show that at the Delray Theater, and you're welcome to be there and participate in the discussion. We have a lot of great events coming up. Make sure you're on the newsletter so you can see what they are. We now have the final benediction. You can be seated for this one. I hope each one of us will recognize how extraordinary and wondrous and miraculous life on this planet is. It wasn't created in 6 days by magic. It was created by stupendous, awesome, wondrous processes that we're just beginning to figure out that led to us. Never, ever say, I'm only human. Evolution led to spectacular beings who are able to actually assess and contemplate, consider, and to change for the better. The world, the cosmos, has never created anyone like any of us, and never will again. It's up to us to bring out the best in ourselves. Let us accomplish that with finesse and with style. We're now going to have Mamotzi. If you'd like, join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. We conclude with the greatest national anthem ever written. I actually was at a Ukrainian rally and I heard the Ukrainian national anthem. It's pretty cool. It's really good. But I still think Hatikva, which means the hope, is even better. So if you'd like, stand up, join me in singing Hatikva, the hope. Nefesh Yehudi Homia Ufate Mizrach Hadima Ayin Letzion Sophia Olo Abda Tikvatenu Hatikva Shnot Alpayim Liot Amchoshi Ve'atzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim Liot Amchoshi Be'atzenu Eretz Zion Yerushalayim. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being here. Please be seated. Thanks for allowing me the privilege to share Shabbat with all of you. Shabbat Shalom.